Work.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a regular meeting of the Stayton City Council on September 17th, 2018, and it's a little past 7 and just about everybody's here. So welcome, and would you join me in a flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we profoundly hope. Okay. The staff is all here. The council is assembled. Let's see. Are there any additions to the agenda that anyone can think of? Are there declarations of ex-parte contact, bias, okay, resentment, ugly feelings? Okay, none of that. All right. Presentations, comments from the public. Let's see if I got these right. Zoning, that's, okay, that's that list. Alan Fusen, would you come over and talk to us?
It's Aaron Fusen, and
Aaron, I'm sorry. There we go.
it's okay. Just had some problems with some no parking signs in my neighborhood. I've lived in my home for almost 15 years. 10 years after that.
Now, Aaron, where's home, please?
Hobson Street.
750?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what's going on Hobson Street?
Well, we got no parking signs after, I don't know, about 10, 12 years of us living there, some of us. I kind of got upset because I got a parking ticket, and so I went to our police chief over here, and then I went to our public works department, and I get told that, I don't know, that we can make it a no parking zone all the way, you know, on the street, all the way through the place, or the fact that you guys can't do anything about this. We need some sort of leeway to be able to load and unload and you know, get stuff in and out of our homes. We need a leeway. I got a petition here for Whitney and on Hobson saying that we don't want the signs. We can compromise with something. We can come up with a 2-hour parking limit or something. I mean, we got to figure something out, but you know, I got a peach of a neighbor that likes to call the cops on me every time I'm washing my car and just on the outside of my driveway. So just it's not sitting real well with me.
Okay. You have a constant police presence up there? There's someone stationed there 24 hours a day?
I don't.
Okay. No? Chief, we don't station somebody up there to watch out for people parking on that side of the street?
I've got plenty of pictures here that, you know, of people parking on that side of the street, and one car was there for multiple days. You know, like I said, I have a peach of a neighbor that likes to make sure that I'm following the law there, you know.
So, Aaron, sounds like more of a neighborhood dispute than the parking, but is the parking just on one side, the no parking?
It is.
Can I speak to that, please?
Absolutely.
Before we go on, can I have some clarification? Because I had no idea where we're talking about here. Can we at least...
The Weldon Woods neighborhood,
Down by
Councilor.
Dairy Queen.
The Weldon Woods neighborhood.
by Dairy Queen?
Dairy Queen?
Yes.
Okay.
Out in that area?
Okay.
Arco?
The gentleman did come into the Public Works Department last Wednesday or Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
And we did speak. After he left, I did look into the conditions of approval for that subdivision. As you may know or you may not know, that subdivision was built substandardly by a developer here in Stayton. The streets were already constructed. They weren't constructed to any of our standards. But at that time, the city council decided to accept those streets as a right-of-way for the public. But when accepting those streets, they also placed some conditions of approval for accepting those streets. And in those conditions of approval, it states there will only be parking on one side of all the streets. Now, that means that there should be no parking signs throughout that subdivision on one side of the street. There just happens not to be. For what reason that is, I do not know. The gentleman is correct. The only no parking signs are on Hobson and, forgive me, I forget and Greer. Those are the only no parking signs in the entire subdivision. However, the conditions of approval that the council came up with when we accepted those streets was there's supposed to be no parking throughout that subdivision on one side of the street. That's the information that I have.
Okay.
I did.
Brian?
Lance, is that because of the width of the street?
The width, the right-of-way width in the street, well, it doesn't meet our street standards. It doesn't meet our right-of-way standards. The curbs are valley curbs. There is no 6-inch delineation. So you can drive through Weldon Woods at times and see people parking on the sidewalk. I don't think that's very safe for kids to be walking down the road and cars are, but that's, there's I'm just letting you know what the council came up with when they accepted those streets.
Okay.
No parking on one side of the road.
Okay, but it's only on 2 streets in that whole area.
It's supposed to be all of it, but for some reason it's only on Hobson and Greer. I don't know the reason why that, Mayor.
Okay.
Maybe the chief can speak to it. I don't know.
Okay. Chief?
Summerview also has the same thing.
Okay.
Mr. Fusen, he did come in and see us. He let me know about his concern and his request, and he was told what the process was. The process would be that he could put it in writing what he was requesting, along with his petitions, and that he would turn it into to staff, and that we would review it and make a decision based on that, and that then the process after that would be that he could take it, if he disagreed with our decision, then he could appeal it to the city administrator, and then from there he could come to here to the council. We have not received a letter or request of exactly what he wants in writing yet.
Well, I can speak to that. That's not staff's decision. Conditions of approval were generated by and approved by the city council. The city council needs to make that decision, not the public works director, not the planning director, or the chief of police. It'd be a city council decision.
Lance, are the signs new or have they been there for some time?
I think that, I don't know. He could
3
probably
years.
speak to that better
3
than
years
I.
they've been there, something like that, but, we've been there for 12 years, without them, just fine. And we had a dispute with a neighbor down the road, and I don't know, for whatever reason, this is what came of it. There was some,
Okay.
people
So
speeding up and down the road and that sort of thing. Now, I don't know why these came about.
Okay. So,
May I speak, Mr. Mayor?
certainly.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, it's actually illegal to park throughout that area, according to us, but we are only ticketing the streets that have the no parking sign on it, even though it's illegal to park everywhere on that side of the street?
No. Only one side. So it's a big loop. One side of that whole street you're not allowed to park on.
There's only signs on one street. There's supposed to be signs throughout, according to the, for one side of the street, throughout the subdivision, you're supposed to have no parking.
And so have we been ticketing people that park on there?
There are no parking signs throughout that subdivision, other than on this gentleman's street. His street and Greer Avenue, which is the street that leads to his street, have no parking signs.
And Summerview.
That's not part of the subdivision. And the rest of the subdivision doesn't have the no parking signs, even though the conditions of approval say it's supposed to.
How wide are the streets supposed to be?
It's a local road, 34 feet. And it's out of my hands, really. This is a city council.
I know, I'm just, there's some streets here in Stayton that are narrower, I feel, than what ours are. And, being there for so long, I'm the original homeowner there. I pay my taxes and everything else, I try to obey the laws. I can't even wash my car at my driveway without having an officer there. It's kind of a waste of time. If we can compromise at all, something, I think most of these people will be okay with that.
Okay. James, Aaron, thank you. I think we'll do something with this.
Thank you.
Okay? Soon.
Thank you.
Okay? If it's a council decision, that
What
makes it
would
a little easier.
I guess, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'd like to ask what you would like the direction for staff to be from the council or from the governing body.
What's the sense of the council on this one?
I'm looking at an overview, and Lance, I'm not seeing very many no parking signs at all on an aerial view.
Like I said, the entire Weldon Woods subdivision, there's 4 or 5 streets that make up that subdivision. They're all supposed to have no parking signs
But you can't.
on one side.
I agree, I agree with
There's
that.
only no parking signs on 2 streets. Those are the facts.
Okay.
So we need to decide whether or not we want to make it a no parking sign or just take the darn signs down.
That's
That it?
right.
Please remove them. The neighborhood would love it if you removed them.
Let's
What's the
offer,
traffic count down there? Is the traffic count really that high that it would, I mean, I know that you're an engineer and you adhere to professional standards, but, and it's just a back of napkins.
We
guess.
haven't performed any daily traffic counts down there, Counselor, so I couldn't tell you. I wish I could, but, you know, there's, how many homes down there, Dan?
we're going to use up the meeting.
120 homes roughly in a
Review,
planning
it's
trip. That's 10 trips per day. That's, 1,200 trips a day coming out of that subdivision, theoretically.
So can somebody let us know what would happen if we just decided to make it to take the no parking signs down?
Well, I believe, let me just, I believe, if I'm incorrect, Rich can speak up, but I believe one of the driving forces around that was the fire department, because you need to have emergency vehicles be able to access that. It's a 28-foot wide road. If you have parking on both sides, that's 18 or 8 foot each. That's down to 12 feet. They need a 15-foot clear
I
access.
understand that, but I'm answering Mr., the city administrator who asked what the council would like for the city staff to do. And that, my response is I would like to know what the impact of taking the signs down would be, which would be something like that. That's what I would like staff to come back to city council and tell us what would happen if we took the no signs down, what impact that would have. That's
So-
what I would like to see.
Can I interrupt? I met with the fire chief as well. He says he has no problem with it. He kind of,
Okay. Again, I don't want to deal with the issue here. I want to know what are the impact if we decide to take the signs down or not. And then we can go from there.
Mayor? Mayor?
Okay, yes. Chief?
The reason this came about three or 4 years ago was because there was a neighborhood dispute down there at that time. There was no signs at that time. There was an issue where there was somebody had a daycare in that area, and cars were being parked all over the place down there, and the neighbors were complaining nonstop about the issues that would with traffic, with the cars being parked on both sides of the street, and we came up with a solution of putting the no sign or the no parking on the one side of the street, and that was after we looked at the original plans and saw that they were supposed to have no signs on both sides of the street. The neighbors, all of them were sent a letter at that time, letting them know what we were going to be doing, and the neighbors were in agreement with us that that would help solve the problem. So we put those in there. We've had very few complaints, traffic complaints down there since that. Those going in there, with the exception of the neighborhood dispute that's going back and forth now, and it has been between those two neighbors for different various reasons, not just the parking, but for other issues as well.
Okay, all right. So, counselors, do you want to offer some guidance to the staff on what to do with this?
If I'm understanding correctly, what you'd like is for us to bring back the pros and cons of having
Okay.
parking on each
That'd be
side,
fine.
and we can
Yeah.
do it that way.
All right, let's go with that.
I think it's important to look at the historical perspective and how we got to that point. I would like to see the deed or whatever showing when the city took it. So,
Whenever Google Maps, there are only 14 cars parked on the street in the whole circle. 120 homes.
One of the things, this is 20 years ago, one of the things when that whole area was developed, I remember the narrow streets, and the developers told us at that time, this is 20 years ago, that the neighborhood association would just enforce no parking on the street at all. And that would let fire vehicles, emergency vehicles in there. And for some strange reason, we bought into that. And that lasted about 3 days until the first resident down there parked his car out on the street. And that was the end of that. But at that time, we bought that, and it was a mistake.
To me, I'm just going to speak here real quick. To me, it's not so much the width of the street. I've designed subdivisions that are 28-foot wide streets. Emergency vehicles work. To me, the biggest issue is safety. And we don't have curbs down there.
Right.
If you drive through at any particular time, you have people parking on the sidewalk.
Okay.
That's not what the sidewalk's for.
I get that, that's fine, we
All right.
ticket those people. We have patrols that come through there, we ticket those people that are on the sidewalk. I mean, that's all we can do, you know?
Okay. We will address this
Thank you,
soon, okay?
thank you.
Thank you. All right. Shifting gears, Samantha Jones.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samantha Jones. For 2 months, I've been attending city council meetings asking to revoke the smoking prohibited section of Ordinance 1019. I have brought over 150 signatures from citizens decrying the personal intrusion of their local government. When asked for any documentation on the complaints, petitions that took place before the proposed ban, there has been none. Given the I said and she said nature behind the implementation of the smoking ban, I think it's not unreasonable to ask the council to put this back up for a revote. After all, it only takes one council member to appeal. I asked politely, then more forcefully for a response from this council. Myself and others who have spoken in opposition to this ban have heard nothing but silence. The first time I came, I was told it would be looked into, and you would get back to me on the procedures to put it to a vote. On August 20th, I was lied to. You, Mr. Mayor, lied to me.
Oh, my.
I was told the deadline for the November ballot was April or May, and that it was too late when I first brought this up on the July 16th meeting. That is not true. July 23rd was the cutoff date for the November ballot. Had this council not repeatedly ignored the request of the people and shown their blatant bias towards more prominent people, we could have had all of this settled. Public smoking outside is not a health or safety issue. Multiple studies have proven that. Transient exposure is an annoyance, much like strong aftershave, not a mortal threat. The cost to the businesses will be great, detrimental for employees, owners, and customers. The burden doesn't just lay in the financial aspect, but also in the morale of everyone affected. There is no logical reason for this ban. Since we have come to such an impasse on this particular matter, I ask, what will you do about it now?
Somebody else want to answer that? I obviously can't.
I can say
Go ahead.
this. The last time that you were here, Samantha, I actually went and asked why isn't anything happening? And what I was told is that you had indeed been given the information about what you needed to do, and no one at City Hall had ever seen anyone from there come and ask for paperwork or to actually
No, ma'am,
do it.
wrong.
So that, I'm just saying that
Just as
after-
recently as
after-
this Friday,
Okay, this
I
was
spoke.
before this. This
Oh,
was
okay.
after the last time you were here. I went and said, why hasn't something been done? And at that point, I was told that even though you had been coming to meetings, that no one had come and asked for any paperwork or information about how to get something on the ballot beyond that. So that's
No, ma'am.
where I'm at,
And I've also asked for documentations on the complaints that you say generated this ordinance. I have asked for copies of the petition, cannot receive them. Ask your city manager.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sam, have you been contacted by the RDS folks?
Yes, sir, I sure have.
And we received an email today stating that you guys are working together to try to resolve this. Is that true?
Have been working, but what's going to be done? And until then, why can't this ordinance be rescinded? Because we're not the only business affected.
Correct.
Cheers is in a much similar situation that we are, where there is no compromise, really. I mean, Rumors is being charged $25 a week for a permit that can be rescinded at any time.
Samantha, that's per night.
Per night. Isn't that great?
For what?
So that they
What's that
can,
for?
so that they can enjoy a privilege that they've had since the beginning of Stayton. Now $25 a night, they're being charged for a permit.
For, what's the permit for, Sam?
So that they can put up a fence in a public alleyway and divert traffic into a private parking lot to go onto the street.
Let's not talk, Sam isn't from Rumors. Let's not.
No, but I've been
talk
asked to
about
speak on
that.
behalf of them and the Red Apple.
Counselor, I did look into it, and Chief Stevens can probably concur. Rumors did, to their credit, implement a...
Again, Mark, this isn't about Rumors.
Hear me out.
It's about the smoking ordinance.
Oh, well, okay, hear me out, please,
finish
Counselor. They did put in a fenced area in their back lot for smoking, so that, to discourage smoking out front, and they removed the receptacles and such. Now, Chief Stevens can perhaps enlighten us as to the fees and whys and wherefores, but they followed the ordinance, and I think that there is a fee for that, Chief?
Yeah, what's this?
Anytime somebody blocks a roadway or public property, they're required to have an event permit or a street closure permit, which they get from me. It's $25 to do a permit for any reoccurring event. It's $50 for the first time that an event happens. They request a permit to block the alleyway. They have property on the other side of the alleyway that they could use, but they wanted to be able to use the alleyway because it's closer to their building versus going across the alley and using their area that's actually their property. And so they put in a permit and do the signage to go around the alleyway. They've been doing that for years, even before the smoking ban went into effect statewide. They've been requesting for an area, anytime that they had a major event where they brought in a concert, they wanted to have an outside area where people could go and drink and smoke outside of the building, and so they would put in that they would request that permit.
Well, Chief, how many of those permits have you issued to Rumors?
They probably do a dozen a year.
Okay, and they're $25 a piece.
Correct.
But it's not like tonight, tomorrow night, and the next night, not $25 every night.
It's $25 each time that they want to close the street down.
Okay. Okay. I guess that helps.
Now, Chief, I am an OLCC permit holder, and OLCC service permits require for the area to be fenced and congruent to the bar. You can't have a separate area where alcohol is carried across the street. Is that correct? Or an alleyway?
Everything that they do when they have alcohol outside of the building has to be approved by OLCC. Their liquor license, if I understand correctly from OLCC, allows them to take it to that area as well.
Which is why the fenced area is congruent to them, though, not in their parking area.
If they wanted to do it in the other area, they would just have to go through OLCC to set that up, to get that approval to do it there.
But wouldn't we be carrying open containers across a city street?
It would depend on how they did it through OLCC.
Mr. Mayor, when it comes time for business from the council, I would like to address the ordinance in whole, so I think that's the appropriate time.
Samantha, I would really like to see what you guys can come up with working with the other downtown businesses and see if you can come up with some kind of an agreement.
We would like to
And
come
so
up with an
that's
agreement, but
what I
as
would
the
like-
way,
I
as the
would
way
like
the
to
ordinance
see.
sits now, We have no options. When you walk out of our back door, in 2 feet, you are in a public alley. On the other side of that public alley, we do not own that property, the city does. It is the parking lot behind the courthouse.
I go by there quite frequently, and I see
Sure.
people smoking outside. Is there a reason that's happening? Right? Isn't it?
It's not our designated smoking area.
But what I'm saying is I don't see people not smoking there right now. So I guess I'm not sure what the problem is, why you guys can't be working on it while you still continue to.
We are willing to work on it, but in order to have a designated smoking area, you need to be able to put something up.
Sam, are
so-
people smoking outside of your building right now during the day?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Front and back.
So then, keep doing it and work on some kind of a solution. I mean, I feel like you're here saying, oh, we're not smoking anywhere, and so we have to do something really quickly.
No, ma'am, I'm not here saying.
You're smoking
Our
right now
designated
outside the
smoking
building.
area has always been in the front of our building, and according to the city ordinance, that can no longer happen.
But you're still doing it every single day.
Yeah?
So if you could work, while you're still doing it, obviously, work on some kind of a resolution.
Priscilla, I
that
see
you
no
can bring
reason for
to
an
it.
ordinance to be implemented when it's not enforced. Why is it still on the record? Why is a law if it's not to be obeyed?
Mr. Mayor.
Good point.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Again, when it comes time for business from the council, I plan on addressing ordinance 1019 tonight.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sam. Steve, let me get James McGrory first. James?
Hank, we need their address.
What?
We need their address when they give their name.
Yeah, Sam sometimes gives her address and sometimes doesn't.
The business address is 255 3rd Street, Stayton, Oregon.
Okay, 255, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. My name is James McGrory, and I'm speaking in opposition to Ordinance 1019, smoking ban, and 3rd Avenue and whatever. It's been requested for the last 2 months that the council rescind this crazy ordinance and bring it up for reconsideration. There's no evidence of anybody trying to discuss it among the council. There's no conversation, no documentation. Priscilla said she went and had all this survey and all these people. There's no documentation that that even happened. That's what you stated, and I questioned you if you had documentation. Oh, we're going to have a meeting of all those concerned, try to come to a resolution. No meeting has ever taken place. Nobody even wants to talk about it. It's kind of like we're just being tried to be brushed under the carpet. We're not going to go away. We are people that have rights, and something like this should not be decided by 5, 6 people. It should be decided by the public if you want to do something like that. I'm begging you to put this back into reconsideration. Talk about it and show on the minutes what happened. Who voted for what? I can't find anywhere your individual voting records are. I can't find it. It just says this passed 4-0, 5-0. Nobody says anything about who voted how. That's important.
Well, James, sometimes I ask the council be polled, and then the names are called out, and that's on the tape. if you watch that.
Mr. Mayor, did James not get a copy
on the
of
video.
the 200 businesses or whatever it was that signed to support that was given to us 3 council meetings ago, that your neighbors signed?
I don't know.
Actually, Priscilla, we've spoken to our neighbors.
I'm saying that there is a petition with names on it.
People,
None of them signed it.
one at a time, please.
Can they get a copy of the petition that we were given? Is that private business?
It's not our petition.
Huh?
We didn't do the petition. The petition came from RDS.
Huh? Right, and I'm saying, why can't we share that petition?
We're going to hear from Steve here in a little bit. We'll find
So
out.
there are 2 petitions. One was initiated, and correct me if I'm wrong, by Mr. Loftus with 150 or 200 signatures in support of Samantha's thing, and RDS or someone had another petition out there. These were not council petitions. They had not originated here.
Yeah,
Priscilla,
that's the point.
what is that?
Priscilla asked if you got a copy of the petition and the signatures.
I was asking if you received a copy of the same petition that we received a copy of.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm hard of hearing. I'm asking her to interpret for me.
It's okay.
it's all right.
Copy of what?
The petition
Petition for what?
for the no smoking ban.
No,
You did not get a
No,
copy of it.
okay.
no.
He can only hear one person.
Yeah, I know, we know. James, what else? What do you got,
Petition that
bud?
we signed?
No, they have that, James.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to the meetings, Priscilla? We're gonna get together, we're gonna have a meeting and discuss this. There's been no meetings.
My understanding is that Sam did meet with RDI.
Yes.
That was my understanding.
Sam's not the only one involved. What was supposed
But
to happen? I
you,
met with them several times. And
Oh,
the
okay.
city manager and council members. Yeah,
Okay.
but there's
Okay.
been nothing done. There's been no compromise made. There's no answer
It's,
for any of us on what to do about it.
but there has been a meeting. I think that you need to let him know that that there has been indeed meetings and
Counselor, were you at one of the meetings, or?
no, I'm saying that she told me that. She said that.
the big meeting that you were,
There has been no big meeting.
that you were promised is still in the works.
So is anybody promised a big meeting?
I suggested,
July 16th. That's when it was suggested.
that we get all the parties together and sort this out, and it just hasn't happened yet.
My understanding was it did. That the parties are RDI and
RDS.
the RD, whatever it is, and these people.
The city needs to be involved in it. It's our ordinance, so we'd have to be.
No, it's,
Oh.
again, we're representatives of the
Anyway.
people downtown.
James, you done? We need to move along here
Do
if we
you
can.
intend to have a discussion about this?
Later in the meeting, yes.
Vote?
James, it's going to come up as business from the council.
Yes.
It'll come up in business.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, thank you. I hope there's an alternative to, we want it rescinded, but you could have a meeting and say, maybe we could amend this
Okay.
to
All right.
exempt the bar area.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. You want to? You need to sit up here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get it done. Okay. Steve, please, and then Jim Weaver.
My name is Steve Poison. I live at 1750 East Pine Street. I am the Vice President of RDS. I would just like to speak to some of the issues that have been brought up. It is true that various members of RDS have had meetings with Samantha and Mr. Wu, the owner of the bar, and have talked about possible solutions. The issue that they have presented signatures to have the ordinance rescinded. A citizen initiated a petition that was brought to you to have the ordinances kept. We had no part of that. That was a citizen initiative, which I believe is the one you're referring to that was brought here 2 meetings ago, maybe, something like that. So I think you've heard.
Just point, both initiatives were initiated by citizens.
That's true. They both were initiated by citizens. We had no part of either one of them. So I believe that you have heard pretty much equal arguments from both sides, from citizens, which is what you asked to hear, was from multiple citizens. It's true that we have been trying to work with Sam and Mr. Wu. The problem is we need the city's involvement in that process. Because of their unique situation, where their building is located, they do not have another option except to smoke in the alley or out front, both of which are not acceptable. Every other bar has another option, including Cheers on First does have another option. They can smoke right where they smoke because it's not the sidewalk.
It is a building front.
But they are in a different situation because their building is not against the property line. The sidewalk is out at the street.
Okay.
So as long as they don't smoke out at the street, they can continue smoking against their building, would be my understanding. So your bar is really the only one that is in a very unique situation. And we have had multiple conversations about how to try to resolve their particular situation, and we cannot do it without assistance from the city. I wrote an email to Mr. Campbell asking for a possible solution. He said, no way, no how, to my proposal. And I have also been led to believe that you, Mr. Mayor, were going to be part of sort of coordinating a meeting with all parties to help find solution to their particular situation. So we are also waiting for that meeting to happen because we agree that a meeting needs to happen so their particular solution can be resolved. I don't think that calls for changing or repealing the ordinances in any way. I think they need a solution that the city is part of solving.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Jim Weaver.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Jim Weaver. I live at 1002 East Virginia Street. Come to speak to you tonight on behalf of my petition for a heritage tree that you will hear later on in the agenda. I have some new information that I hopefully have been provided to you all. We had an arborist come out and look at that tree from R&R Tree Service. He has estimated the age of that tree to be 250 years old. He said the tree is in vigorous condition and is perfectly healthy. I've done a little more research. I contacted the Oregon Forestry Department. They tell me that that tree is an Oregon white oak tree, which is a native tree. And according to the information I received from Oregon Forestry, there are several cities within the state that have put a moratorium on cutting these trees because there are so few of them fully mature trees left. The tree is wanted by members of the community as represented by the Planning Commission meetings and the Commission or the Council meetings here where we've had several people to talk to you about it. According to information I received from several places, it would be impossible to replace this tree because of the nature of how old it is and everything else. So I can't give you a cash value of that. I can estimate from what they've told me the value of the boards would be, but that's not really what we're talking about here. That figure is somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. This tree was here long before Stayton was a community. I would ask that you grandfather this tree in since it was here way before we were. I've been closer, like I said, I've been closer to report to you guys showing the tree is healthy and we should try to save it. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to keep it short because I know we got a long agenda tonight, but I'd be willing to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jim. Let's go on. We've got a bunch of other people that want to testify, but they're in the plant and excuse me, the public hearing that's coming up here in a little bit. So let's go to take a break from these presentations from the public and go to consent agenda, please, and then we'll go to a public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay. Is there a second? I got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Everyone's had a chance to look at it. Would all in favor say aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing no opposition, will declare the motion passed. And let's go to a public hearing, and I need to read something first. And where is my paper? What did you do with it? It's right here in front of me. Thank you. This is a script that I have to read at the beginning of these things, so bear with me. Good evening, my name's Henry Porter, and as mayor, I'll be presiding over this hearing. This is the time and place set for a continuation of the public hearing in the matter of land use file number 5-04/18 concerning legislative amendments to the comprehensive plan map and the official zoning map. The City Council has held a hearing on July 16th and on August 8th voted to reopen the hearing. Hearing is now open. At the back counter is the agenda for this evening's meeting, which lays out the order in which people will be called on to speak during the public hearing, copies of the map amendments as proposed by the Planning Commission, the city's rules of procedure for land use public hearings, and a brochure written to facilitate your participation in the public hearing. You're encouraged to obtain and read a copy of these documents as well. At this time, I would ask the audience if there are any objections to the notice for this hearing, and I hear none, to the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider this case. I hear none. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, ex parte contact, or bias by any members of this body? I hear none. When it's your turn to speak, please state your name and address for the record. As a participant in the hearing, the city is required to notify of the final results of the process. We're now ready for the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Fleischman.
Members of the council. The issue before you this evening, as mentioned in the opening statement, is a public hearing on proposed legislative amendments to the official zoning map and the comprehensive plan map, the intent of which is to reduce the number of single-family dwellings in the city that are non-conforming uses, meaning uses that are located in a zone where they are not permitted. You held your initial hearing in mid-July, and following that hearing, postponed any action on the proposed changes until this evening. And in early August, you voted to reopen the hearing to take additional testimony. The ordinance has been revised from that which is presented to you, was presented to you in July. There were, maybe still are, copies of the proposed ordinance, or the maps that are part of the proposed ordinance on the table by the door for any members of the audience who are interested in reviewing it. There are 3 areas in the city that the Planning Commission identified had a concentration of non-conforming single-family homes and proposed code amendments. At their public hearing in May, the Planning Commission reduced the number of parcels that would be affected by the proposed changes based on testimony that was received at their public hearing. At your public hearing in July, you were presented with some written testimony that was received before the hearing, as well as oral testimony from members of the public about additional changes. I have incorporated into the ordinance that's before you tonight the changes from most of the property owners that requested that property not have the zoning changed. The two exceptions are at July, you received testimony from Michael Oss, who was not really objecting to removing the commercial zoning in the neighborhood between around 2nd and 3rd Avenues, but was concerned about the impact of creating non-conforming lots because the lot sizes are not the required minimum in the medium density zone, and non-conforming structures because the existing homes don't meet the required setback requirements. As I've said in my response to his testimony back in July, and I've reiterated in my staff report that you've got in your packet, I believe that Mr. Ross misconceived our regulations and therefore have not changed the proposed boundaries of that change in the 2nd and 3rd Avenue neighborhood. Also in July, you received testimony from the owner of a home on West Washington who expressed concern about his potential of opening a home-based business being restricted by changing from commercial to residential zone. The code allows home-based businesses in the residential zones, and so therefore the ordinance as presented to you tonight does not remove his property. The individuals that own property on North Birch Ave that had written to you before the hearing and on North Noble Ave have had their properties removed from the change in the ordinance. I can answer any questions you have. The rest of my staff report pretty much is just a reiteration of the staff report that was presented to you in July as far as the number of homes impacted, the acreage, etc. You do have in your packet a letter from Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate Professionals, and I placed on the dais this evening 2 additional letters. One from Jennifer Martin, a commercial real estate broker who is a former resident of Stayton, and one from Bob and Kay Pendleton. So you've got those as part of the record as well. So with that, I'll wrap up my report and be available to answer any of your questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Are there questions from the council at this point? How about proponents' testimony then? Those in favor of these amendments? How about opponents?
We're proponents.
There we go.
On your list of folks to present, Suzette Boudreau.
That's right.
I reside at 11143 Dogwood Circle in Lyons, and have presented to this council previously, so thank you for reopening this hearing. There are several points that kind of came up in the last council meeting, one of which was that commercial properties are somehow more valuable than residential properties. I would like to comment on those misconceptions. But the first thing I want to say is the Bob Pendleton letter. When I spoke with Bob about this whole situation, he had indicated to me that when he received the postcard from the planning department talking about the zoning changes, he assumed it was a notification, that it was something that had already been approved, decided, and he was just being notified to that. So that may also be true of several other people. And there is, I am going to read Bob's memo to the council, to the audience, so they have that information. First of all, many agents in our business will not even show homes that have commercial zoning. because of concerns for their clients' ability to overcome complications in purchasing. Appraisals today can run as high as $800 or more, and most buyers just cannot take the chance on an appraiser's discretion to state in their appraisal, highest and best use is home. And even if they do so, sometimes the underwriters in those transactions deny it anyway. So in order to collect all of the necessary documents for the lender's underwriter, there's quite a few other hurdles that you have to go through, including getting a letter from the community that it could be rebuilt as a home. And so a lot of buyers just don't show. Most agents represent more than one buyer at the same price point. So one agent not willing to show means multiple buyers that won't see that home if it's miszoned, reducing your opportunity to sell at the highest value. With limited inventory, these would sell eventually, but likely for less than asking and not with the multiple offers that are more common today. And we have someone here to talk about some of those multiple offer situations. Lenders do not currently today have an overlay that declines this hybrid kind of zoning outright. But should lending standards get tighter in the future, then once again, this could be considered a no-lend status. Commercial property used to sell for more than residential, but since the advent of the internet, where so many buyers are today, commercial property has taken a big hit. And though many still believe that it's worth more in the current market, it is not. Stayton has a lot of commercial property downtown that could use redevelopment. So our take is to have homes used as homes, zoned as homes, is our position on that, and in support of the Planning Commission's recommendations. This is the memo to the council from Bob Pendleton. We believe that the Planning Commission's recently proposed zoning map amended changes from commercial to residential are in the best interests of Stayton. The neighborhoods included in the proposed changes will benefit from being zoned according to their use, long-established residences and small businesses. They revised zoning of these lots from commercial to, if they revised zonings of these lots from commercial to residential will reflect the reality and still allow for variances if the changes are adopted. Some of the residents in the rezoned areas have deteriorated in appearance. Perhaps those have not remained solid and worth continuing the house pride of a home. The zone changes might well encourage affordable home ownership. We also view the zone changes as providing a proper mixed-use buffer between current commercial use and established residential use. The proposed zone map changes also safeguard against large-scale development bordering these historically residential neighborhoods of working-class homes and small independent businesses. We think it's important to support and foster these residentially zoned neighborhoods within walking distance of downtown, and with so many future opportunities for commercial development downtown, it seems wise to promote their current revival there. These characteristics of Stayton are valuable and should be acknowledged as such in our comprehensive plan zone ordinances. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yes.
just for a point of clarity, I assume you're a Realtor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Suzette or Leslie?
Suzette.
Suzette, okay. Good, good. There's two.
And we have a couple more.
Yeah, there's two, there are two people. Leslie Stewart, did you want to speak on this proponent's
Yes, please.
side? Okay.
Leslie Stewart, I'm a Realtor at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, real estate professionals here in town. And I reside at 181 Southeast Laurel in Mill City. This letter comes to you from Jennifer Martin. She couldn't make the meeting tonight, so I'm going to read it. Mayor Porter and esteemed council members, I am Jennifer Martin, a commercial real estate broker in Salem. I live at 2352 Toscana Avenue South in Salem, but I previously lived in Stayton from 1994 to 1998 and from 2006 to 2015. I have worked on many commercial real estate transactions in the city of Stayton. I have been a broker since 2003, and prior to that, I financed commercial real estate. I can understand the polarizing situation that comes with the consideration of proactively rezoning property within the city to ensure continued conforming uses with what exists today. What has been proposed largely serves to correct the zoning put in place that I feel was wishful thinking. While I appreciate the city's prior efforts to work to ensure the city had the right ratio of commercial to residential land to encourage the right types of growth and development, I don't think Stayton has seen the type of growth that would command continuation of the zoning that exists today. Unfortunately, many small commercially zoned properties have significantly lower values on a go-forward basis than continued as use as a home. Allow me to explain. Many homes are on parcels in the 4,500 to 8,000 square foot range. For those sites to be used commercially, parking, setbacks, and development standards for commercial properties have to be implemented. Those standards sometimes can render a small commercially zoned property unusable unless the structure is removed and replaced as parking, circulation, and ADA requirements cannot be met with the location of the current structure on site. And if a person is going to buy a home on a commercial property only to tear the home down, then the home is of no value, leaving only the site value under which the seller to obtain a return, which usually doesn't work for the seller as it yields a significantly lower value as the continued use as a home. One way to overcome this is to make the site larger through assemblage. That takes a lot of time, and one has to wait until folks are willing to sell to develop their plan. If the city was trying to place residential zones on properties that weren't currently located adjacent to residential properties, I would have issue with the proposal. However, it appears that most of the requested changes to help improve the compatibility of the neighborhoods and the transportation infrastructure that exists and the livability to which Stayton residents have grown accustomed. Thank you for your time. Jennifer Martin, Mid-Valley Commercial Real Estate, 340 Vista, Suite 150, Salem. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Brenda Bonebrake. Brenda, there she
Good
is.
evening, Brenda Bonebrake. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate Professionals. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so please bear with me. My address is 40504 Fox Valley Lane up in Lyons. My business address is at 1155 First Avenue. I just wanted to speak to the realities of the values in commercial property versus residential in small towns. As Suzette mentioned, there is a big misconception that those values are higher if you keep your property commercially zoned. In reality, the exact opposite is true. If you have a residential home there, the supply is much higher for that. The demand is much higher for that. The demand on commercial properties is much lower. You can only have, usually on the smaller properties, it's typically a bookkeeping business, tanning salon, nail or hair salons, and there's only so much demand for those. I just wanted to give you a quick example of a property. Over 20 years that I've been a real estate agent, we've worked on a lot of these, and we always end up discounting them when they're commercial zoning, even if we try to start them at the higher residential price that it would normally bring. About 5 years ago, we had a property down here on Ida Street, the corner of Ida and First Avenue. It was being used as a residential property, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,200 square feet. It was a commercial zone. We did obtain a letter from the city that stated that it could be rebuilt as a residence if it burned down, as long as the use had not been changed. We started that price at that time at $149,000, which would have been typical for a residential in that area. Lots of buyers responded to that. Lender after lender told them no, we will not loan on that. We ended up reducing the price on that property to $139,000. We got an offer, the appraiser turned it down. After that, we reduced it to $129,000. We got 2 more offers. The appraiser okayed it. It went up to final underwriting, which is, the final blessing before they approve that loan, and he turned it down. So long story short, we ended up at $109,900 is where we sold that property. We finally were able to get it to go through as a residential, but that was after 5 lenders and 6 different buyers. 2 years later, it came back on the market. Prices were higher. But they again started it at 149 because it was a commercial zone. They dropped it to 139 and then reduced it to 129 and finally sold it at 125. So it still took a discount. So the main reason I wanted to speak tonight was just to say that I think it's a good idea to rezone these residential properties as residents. It's good for the values of the people that own them, and if you go to resell them, it's worth a lot more money. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Brenda. Are there any other proponents' testimony? Any more? Let's go to opponents. Kevin Rubel, would you like to speak at this time on this?
Hi, I'm Kevin Rubel. I live at 384 Noble Avenue and here in Stayton. I actually just seen the Second Amendment to the zone change, and the piece of property that we own, we previously had the business on West Washington, Dale's Auto Body, and we sold it 3 years ago. And we had purchased the lot behind it, which is on Oak Street, and that was in the first proposal on zone change, going from commercial to medium density. Well, we purchased that property when we bought it because it was zoned commercial general to be with our business, so for expansion purposes, and we didn't want it to change from commercial general to medium density because it was zoned commercial general. And but now I see on the Second Amendment, because I wrote a letter to Dan already about we weren't in favor of changing the zone on that particular piece of property, because we plan on selling the property in another 1.5 years with the shop and the lot with it. And that's mainly why we were opposed to having the zone change.
Right there. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty much what I had to say to the council.
Okay. So conclusion, it needs something else to happen?
I don't believe so. Looking at the Second Amendment, zone amendment, that was dated September 17th, that actually shows the lot on this one. The first map we had, it was in zone change.
Okay.
And on
So
the,
you're good now?
Yeah, we're good on this one.
You're fine.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any other opponents' testimony on these changes? How about government agencies? Are there any? I guess back, Dan, thinking of you, any other government agencies checked in on this? No? Any general testimony on these changes? Okay. Questions from the public? Questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve what's before us. We gotta close it first. Gotta close the hearing. Sorry. It's a hearing.
I thought I heard some noise from this end.
I'm sorry. It's a hearing. You have to close it.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Questions from the council still? Are we on that at all? Back to a staff summary then. Dan?
So the ordinance that's before you reflects the requests for changes that were made at the previous public hearings or the previous testimony, with the exceptions that I pointed out in my initial remarks this evening. Staff recommend, Planning Commission has previously recommended the changes. Staff recommends the changes as amended to as reflected in the September 17th drawings that are part of the ordinance tonight. You've got the options of enacting the ordinance as revised or making further revisions to it, or leaving the maps as is and not making any changes at all.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you, Dan. Anything else? I'm going to close the hearing otherwise, and we'll go to council deliberation.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we
Explain
approve
that.
the first consideration of ordinance 1022.
Okay.
Option number 1 is presented by staff.
Okay, is there any other, is there a second on that?
Second it.
Okay, a motion and a second then to approve the first consideration of ordinance 1022. Is there any discussion? Anything? Alyssa, would you pull the council on this, please? Let's go to a vote.
Sure. Counselor Glidewell?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Mullen?
Yes.
Counselor Cronquist?
Yes.
Counselor Esselman?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. The council's decision, we've got a 5-0 vote, so it's 1022 is approved. The first consideration is approved. City council's decision may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Directors within 21 days in accordance with the Oregon Revised Statutes 197.830. Okay. Moving right along. New business, or unfinished business, none. I meant to recognize, I saw them here and said something earlier about all those scouts here, and then didn't get their leaders up here to say a word about bringing them and part of their civic responsibility, and also
Citizenship in the community, Mayor.
missed that one. Hopefully, they'll pick that up from their pack leaders. Under no new unfinished business, new business community grant request. Alyssa, this is for you.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the 2018 community grant requests. As you are aware, but I'll recap it real quick for the audience. In the 2018-19 fiscal year budget, the Budget Committee and Council approved a $5,000 to go towards community grants. This year, the community grant application process was open July 1st through July 31st, and we received a total of 5 applications, which are included in your packet. In May 2016, the council set up rules for how to award the community grants, and our total grant request this year came in at $5,000, which is the budgeted amount. And so through the process that you adopted in May 2016, there's no distribution calculations or rankings because they came in at the budgeted amount. So it's up to the governing body to review the applications and award based on the eligibility. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Questions?
I have.
What would you folks like to do?
Councilor Glidewell has a question.
A question? Go ahead, please.
So I guess I didn't realize that a group that was not a 501c3 or a nonprofit of some kind could apply for this. So I was wrong, correct?
Correct. It has to be an organization within Stayton or serve that something that directly impacts the citizens of Stayton are what the rules
That would be
indicate.
Stayton Youth Athletics?
There's no requirement for the 501c3.
Okay. Do we have any kind of requirement for fiduciary responsibility on that as to how? Pardon?
I said, welcome to my opposition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess.
Big, long, blind trust factor there.
Well, if an organization is not set up to actually deal with funding, there's no, I don't see how the decision, I guess I just don't see the fiduciary responsibility that would need to happen that you're assured of when somebody's a 501c3. Normally, you would be assured that they have some kind of ability. So if people aren't that, then I would want to know a little more about what their history is with their funding, how their funding works, where they keep their money, who decides how it's spent. I would want to know a lot more information, I guess, than I would if somebody's set up as a nonprofit.
And the one, Counselor, is the only one that's not a 501c is North San Youth Athletics, correct?
Correct.
Well, I was personally surprised that the food bank didn't put in an application, but they didn't, so that's on them. That's it for me. What would you folks like to do with this?
So I would like to, apparently there are people here from this organization that would like to address my questions, and that would be fine with me, if that's how we're, if that's appropriate.
Mr. Ron Gower. Stayton Sports.
Yeah, Ron Gower, Stayton Sports. I live at 220 Dove Street, Sublimity. And just for a little history, this organization is, if for those of you who aren't aware, the YMCA kind of left the Stayton community, and the programs they ran, were in jeopardy. So some concerned citizens are trying to form a new group. We haven't got our 501c filed yet, but we have somebody on staff, kind of in the group who's working on that. But it's we're kind of been putting out fires, so that one hasn't got put out yet, because our first concern was not missing volleyball, soccer, and football this fall. We do have those programs up and running. I might not get this exactly right, but I believe we had 9 soccer teams, 7 volleyball teams, and 3 football teams. Our funding at this point in time, because we had to partner with the Y to make this happen this year, so all the fees that the participants pay are going to the Y, so we actually don't have any funding, structured yet. But all that will get taken care of. The people involved, are all. Our goal is to keep the cost to a minimal, and just keep these programs going like they've been going in the past, and create a new structure so it'll be an ongoing program. We're getting a lot of help from Santiam Youth Sports, which is the group that runs the baseball, and they're going to take over the basketball this fall, because we didn't feel that we were established enough to take that big a bite out of the apple all at once.
Looked like they also did football. I guess that was one of my
They're doing
things.
tackle football. We're doing flag football.
Okay. I wondered, it looked like you guys were doing kind of the same thing, so I was wondering how come you guys didn't just become one group?
That, is something that a lot of people thought might work, but from Santiam Youth Sports point of view, they've been doing baseball, softball, they've been doing that well, and they didn't want to jeopardize kind of their standing by taking on more than they could do at one time. So we've kind of divided things in half. At some time in the future, it could become under all the same umbrella, or we could end up pulling basketball back and doing it under our umbrella, and then SYS would just stay baseball, softball.
And so do you currently have a board and officers?
We do not. That is our next meeting agenda. Right now we have key people, one in charge of flag football, one in charge of soccer, one in charge of volleyball, and then 5 to 6 people that are, kind of trying to keep all the dominoes standing up and put out the fires as they happen.
So what account would this $1,000 go into if you were to be awarded it?
We would go down to the credit union and establish an account under that name, and we'll have board members by the end of the next meeting. I've been trying not to be the president, but I might have to bite the apple and take that role. I don't know if I have enough hours in a day, but I don't have to sleep, so it'll happen. Any other questions?
I don't think so. Ron, thanks for being there.
Oh, not a problem.
And being here, too.
So,
go ahead.
Another question. Go ahead.
I did. So in your application, it looked like this might be used as
We have
to
some
help you
equipment
get
needs.
insurance.
The insurance is covered through the Y. That's what the players' fees are basically going to. But we do have some equipment needs, because the Y, when they left town, they took all their equipment with them. So we have purchased some soccer goals, some soccer balls, some cones for football, some footballs, and we don't have a lot of equipment costs that that we can't delay. Mainly the biggest cost is the insurance. The schools, North Santiam School District has been really good. We're using all their facilities for free, and they're helping us schedule time with the other groups, the other members of the community using those facilities. But they've kind of given us first shot at everything. Any other questions?
Questions or thoughts? No? So what would you folks like to do with this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I always struggle when it comes to this, and the reason being is that the council is giving away taxpayers' money, and to Priscilla's point, the fiduciary responsibility of it rests on the shoulders of this council. I think one of the qualifications for these grants is that the money stays locally, correct?
Yeah. Yes, that is
And do you
correct.
know how that verbiage reads in that application?
I believe it says it must be an organization within the city of Stayton or specifically serving the citizens of Stayton with that grant money.
I think for me, the bigger issue is I think this originated back in the day when it was peer court funding, wasn't it?
That was one.
And there's a mark in the budget for it now for peer court. I just wish we could do something different to make sure that this money goes to the best coverage for everybody in the community. In my mind, is the food bank. I mean, like you mentioned it, they didn't apply for it, but
They just, yeah, I don't know.
I wish there was
why.
a better way for us to
And I
designate
would
this.
totally disagree with that.
I know you would. We had this conversation before.
Yeah. That goes 4-1, Priscilla, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I guess just looking at like one of these applications, for example, it says the money's going to go into places like Ashland, Bend, Chiloquin, Klamath Falls, Lakeview.
I think it says that's where the programs are going to all be done, but the money that is being requested to present it to the Stayton area.
That's just for budget for future tours and artifact preservation is what the thousand.
I tell you what, I think that if some changes need to be done to the specifics of how we look at that, this is one thing. At this point, I say that we have $5,000. $5,000 has been requested, let's give it out and then look at our processes, if people have a problem with the process.
Okay.
So I make a
Keith pulled up-
motion that we...
I wanted to read, Keith pulled up the community grant application, so I just wanted to read the exact language that's in there. It says, grant funds are provided by the City of Stayton taxpayers, so all grants must be an organization working within city limits, or their event must provide a clear primary direct benefit to residents of Stayton. Grant requests are limited to a maximum request of $1,000.
Okay. So again, I make a motion that we approve all of the requests that were asked and go from here.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve the requests, the 5 requests for $1,000 apiece out of the community grants.
Mr. Mayor, there's a citizen's got a hand up.
Is someone, oh, please.
We really shouldn't have discussion during the motion.
Yeah.
What's
Mayor,
that?
we shouldn't really have discussion when there's a motion on the table.
Okay, well, we can't do that. Too late.
Sorry.
Well, the motion's been made and
It's-
seconded, sir.
It's all done.
Yeah, it's council discussion and then the vote.
Is that the way that works?
I know you know that.
Very good. Okay, under discussion, folks. Anything else? People have commented and made good arguments, good positions.
I
made a
always give
motion.
the future. I agree with Councilor Glidewell that a 5013C should be somewhat, one of the, if we're going to keep the bones or rearrange the bones, it should be part of the bones.
Yeah, again, we're not discussing
We're not
the
discussing
bounds
that,
now.
it's
We'll
discussion.
discuss that some other time.
That's
Right
future
now, we
discussion.
have requests in front of us, and I'm making a motion that we approve all of the requests as
That's what.
written.
And that's been seconded.
Yeah, I went to one of the meetings of the
We
Stayton.
have a second.
The Stayton Youth Sports. We're under discussion here. And it was a frantic time. It was August, and things needed to happen yesterday. And these folks put something together just in a matter of a few weeks that was reasonably difficult. I thought it was, and some of them thought it was impossible, but did it anyway. So I was impressed, and I'm glad they were able to do that. Good things happen there. Okay, Alyssa, would you poll the council, please, unless there's any other discussion?
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right. Counselor Cronquist?
Aye.
Counselor Mullen?
Yes.
Counselor Usselman?
Yes.
Counselor Glidewell?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
4-1, okay. All right, we got that one. What's next? Let's see, request for heritage tree designation. Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you. The issue before you with this agenda item is a request by Mr. Weaver to designate a tree as a heritage tree. As a matter of background, about a little less than 20 years ago, the City Council enacted an ordinance that added into the Land Use and Development Code the provisions for heritage trees. It allows anyone that wants to have a tree designated as a heritage tree to request the City Council do so. If a majority of the council votes to approve it, then it's added to the list. The code specifies that no tree shall be designated a heritage tree unless the property owner agrees, and that property owners may request the removal of heritage tree designation. Once a tree is designated as a heritage tree, the code goes on to specify that the written authorization from the Public Works Director or his or her designee is required in order for anyone to damage, cut, carve, transplant, or remove a heritage tree. So designating a tree as a heritage tree does not prevent its removal, but it prevents its removal without the written authorization from the Public Works Director. Since the passage of that ordinance in 1999, the city has designated 6 trees as heritage trees. My staff report mentions 5, but after writing the staff report, I had a conversation with the owner of one of the heritage trees who said, "Oh, I think the city council, shortly after they designated mine back in 2000, designated such and such a tree," and I actually spent quite a bit of time going through city council minutes and did not find the tree that he was referring to, but did find that the pear tree in the Nightling edition of Pioneer Park was also designated as a heritage tree, and it was never added to the list that I inherited when I got here in 2006. So my staff report presents a little bit of information about the tree that's under consideration. It's a Oregon white oak, located partially on Mr. Weaver's property and partially on the property of Code Construction. As I noted, the code requires the owner of the tree to consent. I had a phone call this morning from a representative from Code Construction saying that they had not specifically granted their consent to this designation, but when I explained that designation doesn't necessarily prevent removal of the tree, it only requires that the Public Works Director authorize removal of the tree, he said they don't really have any objection to it either. The tree is approximately 44 inches in diameter at breast height. It's got an estimated height of 55 to 60 feet and a crown spread of about 70 feet. With that, the only criteria in the code for you to look at is that the tree has, quote, exceptional value, unquote, to the community. And with that, staff has no recommendation one way or the other on this. It is part of a planned development, and anything that happens, that development will require the written permission from the Public Works Director one way or the other.
Dan, do we need to wait until we get a letter of consent from Co? Can we just go on? We have a letter from the one-half owner.
Right. Well, my phone conversation with them was that they had no objection, but had not specifically.
But does a phone call have legal? Do we get into a muddled mess if Co says that Fred said so, but Wilma said it wasn't okay.
Yep, or they could come back to you and request that it be removed.
Do they know that this was coming before the council tonight?
Yes, that's why they called me this morning.
Okay.
I did notify them early on of my request to do that.
Well, the real concern, it wouldn't be any concern except, and I think Mr. Ludwig may want to jump in on this, that tree could be damaged in the future, the street construction.
Perhaps. I've been out there.
Adjacent to it, yeah.
I've been out there and looked at it, and I think it could probably be built the way it's supposed to be built. That's a fill area there. They got to bring the road up to make it work.
Okay.
You're not going to be cutting much at all.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that's the case, but until I see construction plans and we go out and stake it and see what it looks like, I mean, there's no reason to say anything one way or the other.
Okay.
Anything else? Yes, please.
The way I see this is all that this does is this means that someone could not go cut it down without someone being aware of it. So at this point, what it's saying is it's getting some kind of protection because somebody's going to know before anything happens to this tree.
Yeah.
We aren't going to get up some morning and somebody's going to taking a chainsaw to it and taking it down, and now it's a moot point.
Yeah.
Correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what I see.
All right.
Is it already protected by a tree cutting ordinance?
This is the tree cutting ordinance that protects it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
Otherwise, we don't have one.
Right.
Okay, what would you folks like to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I should probably announce that this tree is directly across from my house, and that I have a similar tree in the backyard of my house. But that doesn't sway my decision on making this a heritage tree.
Okay. All right.
I move we approve the staff recommendation to create a heritage tree out of this.
I'll second it.
Okay. A motion and a second to
Make this a heritage tree.
grant the request. What's the specific address? It's 1013 East Virginia?
No.
That's
No?
No.
No. 1002? 1002 East Virginia Street, on that adjacent property. Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Anything? Voice vote, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing no opposition, we'll declare that passed. The next thing is ordinance number 1026, repealing State Municipal Code 9.20, begging and amending State Municipal Code number 10.12.40, bracket 5, relating to prohibited parking and standing. Chief?
Mayor and Council, as stated, you have before you ordinance number 1026 to repeal Municipal Code 9.20.02 and amending 10.12.040. It's addressing begging and requesting of alms by somebody out on the street. It has been deemed unconstitutional and an infringement of freedom of speech to have a begging, to prohibit begging in a community. Whereas our code didn't specifically ban it or prohibit it, it was vague and open to interpretation on how we had it written before. And so this ordinance would repeal the begging ordinance, but then also put into place a prohibited parking and stopping and standing section of the code that would prohibit that from happening in the street right of way where streets that were, unless the vehicle is parked, legally parked. And so it would require people to either happen in parking lots or if somebody pulled alongside the road and parked, so that it isn't happening at intersections blocking or causing a traffic hazard.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Chief? Yes. Brian?
Chief, I just thought about this. What does this do for Fill the Boot for the fire department?
There's a clause in there that requires them to obtain a permit, which they do anyway, and they have every year that they've done that in the past, is they've come into my office and requested an event permit, and then we require them to have appropriate signage and flagging out for it.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone familiar with that activity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
We sit in our vehicle and give people standing by the side of the road money in a booth.
Yeah, I'm wanting you to put money in, which is, it's
5.8.
fine. It's just,
5.8.
as long as everyone's familiar with what that is. All right. Any other deliberation, council? What do you want to do with this
I
one?
move, we move to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have a question. So are we doing this because of the letter that we got from the AFL-CIO?
ACLU?
This is from the
ACLU.
ACLU, and we,
I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
We contacted our city-
I'm obviously not good with shortened names tonight.
It's all right.
we contacted our city attorney, and these letters went out throughout the state, and this was the recommendation from our city
Right.
attorney.
Because there are other cities that have these kind of.
It looks like from the listserv that a significant number of cities in Oregon all received the same letter,
I think
similar letter.
that ACLU letter said 60.
It was sent to the country. It was across the country.
I thought it was just.
Nope, it was across the country.
Oh.
So this is the recommendation from our city attorney on the best way to proceed.
I move we accept the recommendation of the city attorney, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'll second.
So the recommendation is to repeal State Municipal Code 920-020 and amending Stayton Code 1012-040(5). Is there any other discussion?
Just that letter was full of misrepresentations and stuff that actually is not true,
Oh, okay.
factual. And so that's it's fine, as long as you know that it was a letter written for a certain purpose, and so consequently, again, it had a bunch of stuff in it that they would be hard put to prove. It was a lot of opinion.
Oregon's free speech
Somebody wanted
protections are
some
far more
action.
than that
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
Mayor and council.
Yes.
Yes, that letter did come, and I was aware of that constitutional change from the Supreme Court already, and knew that needed to be changed, and so we made the changes based on what the Supreme Court had ruled on previously, and then our city attorney also said yes, that was the case, that it needed to be changed. There's other cities that have been changing their code based on that Supreme Court ruling, and they've been enacting similar codes the way we've been doing it as well to prohibit it from happening in the street right away.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Anything else on that one?
So
We had a motion and a second.
what did you say was going to take, you said that because that was going away, you were enacting something else?
We are putting it in place so that begging cannot happen, and collecting of funds, or in this case, the way it's written into with alms, from the street right of way, so that people can't stop in the intersection and hand money out, so that it can't become a traffic hazard. So in order to do it, it has to be done in a parking lot or an illegally parked.
For instance, if you're coming
Parking
off
spot.
I-5 to Highway 22 eastbound.
So are you telling me
the
that
people who
if
camp
somebody
there-
stops to
yeah.
give a person $1, you're going to ticket them? Is that what you're telling me?
They could be ticketed in that case.
But it'll also discourage the person from standing there, right?
Correct.
Yes.
It is, doing that has been very effective in streets around the state, or cities around the state where they've put that in place, and it's moved it into appropriate locations.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second.
There is. And people keep offering comments and questions. And let's go to a vote. Alyssa, would you poll the council on this one, please?
Of course. Counselor Mullen?
Yes.
Counselor Glidewell?
No.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Usselman?
Yes.
Counselor Cronquist?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, it's good. Staff and commission reports, Finance Department, and that is in our packet. Are there any questions on that tonight?
If, Mr. Mayor, as always, I was going to have a question. Our 12-month rolling average and the total of checks issued was roughly 502 to 549. I know we had some checks last month for some payments, but we've jumped up from last month 649 to 809,000. A significant increase.
So K&E for the Mill Creek construction, and the Peterson CAT is a wastewater treatment generator. It's the two big things that are driving those expenses.
Thank you.
And as long as it all can be explained, we're
happy.
We're mostly good with it, right? Okay. No,
People
but
ask.
It's all right to ask the questions, sure. Anything else on finance? Police chief, Rich?
Mayor and Council, you have the statistical report for the month of August is before you, and there's I have no changes or additions to that.
Okay. Chief, seems like we're referring more young people to peer court. It's like 35 at this time in 2017 and 74 at this time, year-to-date. Is that any easy explanation for that? It just...
Not other than that, we have a very good peer court system here in Stayton, and we have a very active school resource officer that does a good job of taking care of issues as they crop up.
Okay. The district still just have one SRO?
Correct.
Just one?
The school resource officer is for all the schools that are within the city of Stayton. For Regis, St. Mary's, and Stayton Elementary, Stayton High School, Stayton Middle School.
Is that one of our officers?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's an officer that we have on the force that we've assigned to that role.
Okay. Okay. The district has a kind of a truant officer, safety officer, whatever they call him?
He's the director of school safety is what he is.
There we go, yeah. They bought him a new rig this year, which is kind of neat. Yeah.
Is that person a certified officer, Chief?
No, he is not.
No.
No.
No. Okay, thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions or notices? Lance, anything from Public Works, or lots of things probably?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you have my monthly operating report for August. I really don't have anything else to add to that, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay.
I know it's early, but do you have a date for the leaf collection yet?
It's usually November, December, but no, Michael hasn't come up with the actual date. It's usually like the first weekend in November and the first weekend in December.
And it's going to be canned food donation, or?
It generally is. I don't see why it would change.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Lance. Planning and Development Director, Dan? What's going on?
Well, you've got my report on my August activities, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
So Dan, what's going on Friday for River Fusion?
So Friday evening, starting at 5 o'clock in the parking lot at the corner of 3rd and High Street, will be a concert and
beer garden and food
and beverages served from 5 to, I believe, at 9. Music starts at 7:30 or something. 7.
Okay. Sometime.
Steve, can you give a little 10 seconds on River Fusion? It's in a...
River Fusion is a canyon-wide program that is happening up Highway 22, basically, is why it's called River Fusion 22. All of the communities along that route have been asked to hold an event that sort of reflects their town or sort of provides some entertainment in their way. RDS has decided to do the event as Dan described. We have a licensed alcohol vendor. We have Moxie Berry will be providing the food as required by OLCC. We have a band that is hired. And we will have flyers and coupons that are available to visitors to the community that may not be aware of what shops we have downtown. So a lot of the shops have agreed to be open from 5 till 8 for extended hours. So that's basically what it consists of.
Sounds good. Thank you, Steve. Let's see. What else? Library Director, Jenna?
Mayor and Council, you have my report and my stats in front of you. I would like to let you know that the library received an LSTA grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services for $3,000 this summer to help refresh youth collections, which is like youth books and audio and the whole thing. So we really appreciate that. And I would like to invite you to our Women in State and History presentation. That's not this Thursday, but the following one.
All right. Questions or thoughts for Janet tonight? Okay. Let's see. Presentations, comments from the public. Is the gentleman still here that wanted to say something about that? He left? Okay. Well, there was a chance to say whatever he needed to. Any other presentations, comments from the public? Another chance? No? Business from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two things. I'm going to put Rich on the spot. Dean Butler, would you like to talk about Dean Butler and something that he's done recently? And I know we have a social media post we're going to go up with, but Rich, can you talk about that just briefly?
Sure.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Dean Butler is our school resource officer, and he does a very good job of teaching school staff on the active shooter procedures or any type of dangerous situation of how to handle that. It's called the Standard Response Protocol. It is a protocol that's put in place by, or that was founded by a gentleman and his wife after a school shooting in Colorado, and he wanted to work to put in what's called this SRP, or the Standard Response Protocol, so that law enforcement, all emergency services, and schools would all be using the same standard language for how to do lockouts and lockdowns and evacuations and things of that nature. Officer Butler, after using this and implementing this district-wide, he came up and said, I think that there's a need for another symbol, and that was a hold symbol for when the ambulance comes in and does as a medical emergency in a hallway, and they need to get medics through the halls. And it was just to hold the kids in place in the classrooms, so that whatever emergency personnel needed to get through the hallways could, or if there was a fight in the hallway or a major spill of some sort, and that kids shouldn't be in that area. He called the national organization, and they were very much in favor of doing that, and because of that, it implemented a new process nationwide for this. It's now on their website as a new part of the training.
Very cool.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
And Mr. Mayor, I guess I want to talk about the downtown smoking ordinances, which is more the ordinances of 1019. I think this is the fourth meeting we've had this conversation. In one of the council meetings, and I don't have it in front of me, but a council member had asked the 4 bars who were present, were they contacted from RDS regarding these ordinances, and the answer was no. Representatives from the city have contacted 17 prominent businesses in the downtown asking a simple question, which is, were they contacted by RDS prior to these ordinances being passed? And the answer was no. And none of the businesses were aware of what the ordinances that have been passed were or currently are. I think the downtown businesses have a legitimate complaint, and more of a concern, I think future enforcement will lead to similar situations like this. We need to create and support a good political process and outcome for creating policy. And what we're seeing is the outcome of not having good communication with our businesses and our stakeholders. The question is what we should do to remedy the situation, and I would recommend that we take the action to fix this problem, to properly vet, discuss, and provide a forum for engagement and feedback for the stakeholders of this ordinance. My suggestion would be for the council to direct staff to suspend the downtown enforcement codes and to have a public hearing to reconsider the ordinance. Additionally, I would recommend that staff be directed to make sure that local businesses and building owners are properly contacted and notified of the language of the ordinance, proposed ordinance, and receive clear direction on the opportunity to provide feedback or comment at a public hearing. I've been advised that the above recommendation is unnecessary because the outcome will remain the same. While that is certainly a reasonable position, I would argue that our focus should be on doing the right thing and upholding ourselves and our subservient organizations to the highest standards. These steps would show that we are not infallible and that we are willing to have the political courage to do the proper process and procedure. So with that, I will yield the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Yeah. All right. Business from the chair. So that's a continuation of our earlier discussion this evening, and there's more to
There's more
come.
discussion
But
to come,
anyway,
Mr. Mayor.
right now, I've got a proclamation from the governor on First Responder Appreciation Week. Just a little bit of it. Both career and voluntary include law enforcement, firefighting, emergency medical technicians, 911 dispatchers, and search and rescue people who risk their lives every day to protect Oregon families, visitors, and businesses. And Governor Brown has proclaimed September 24th to the 30th of this year as First Responder Appreciation Week. And she signed, I've got a proclamation signed by Governor Kate Brown and Dennis Richardson, the Secretary of State. We're going to post this in City Hall. Okay, so it'll be available there. And that's all I've got. Business from the council. Councilor Quigley.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. There's no doubt that everyone shares the same sentiment to make downtown a better place for all of us. I think what you heard from the folks that are opposed to the smoking ban was they weren't included from the process from the start of the whole thing. And what you heard tonight was that even Mr. Poison acknowledged that Mick and Mom's is being treated unfairly. That the rest of the locations can figure out a way to make this ordinance work, if you want to call it that, but those folks can't. In my mind, we went about it the wrong way. We should have done our due diligence and had those folks involved in the process up until the point that it came to council. And that didn't happen. If you look at Ordinance 1019, as Mr. Campbell alluded to or eloquently discussed, there's portions of that ordinance that today are not being enforced. One of those, my concern with one of those is the awnings and being not lit. How many awnings have been lit since the ordinance passed?
0.
One of those awnings is actually the owner of a member of RDS. And so I kind of scratch my head when even the RDS folks aren't in compliance with the ordinance. So what I would ask is that we do indeed suspend the enforcement of 109, bring it back, have the staff go out and inform everybody of the content of that ordinance. There's a whole host of stuff in that ordinance. Come together again so everybody can sit here and say, I like this, I like that, I don't like this. Here's what we can do to benefit the community and change it to apply equally, fairly, and everyone has a say in it. And it still might be that smoking's prohibited. But let's get everybody to work on it together. Even tonight, when we received an email from the president of RDS, he forwarded to us an acknowledgement from McMinnville where they don't have a non-smoking ordinance in place because it doesn't work. And in that, he gave us, the McMinnville administrator or the McMinnville source gave us some suggestions on how we can make the non-smoking take place downtown on a voluntary level.
As a Linfield alumni, McMinnville only has one bar equivalent to Mick and Mom's, Cheers, Rumors, Bottle Factory. It's called the Blue Moon. The Blue Moon has its own parking lot out back that it owns. They step out the back door and smoke. It is completely non-applicable to anybody here in this town.
And to say that these folks don't care about the downtown from a littering standpoint, I've been downtown a couple blocks away from 3rd Street, and I watched James out there with the sweeper sweeping up butts, not only in front of the location, but also in the back. And I've seen that on several occasions. So if he has enough ability to care that much to make the community look better, why not give him an opportunity to really have say in what this ordinance says? And for that reason, I make a motion to suspend the enforcement of Ordinance 1019 and have staff make sure that every member of this community from a business standpoint knows what the content of 1019 is.
I have a comment, please, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
I'd like to say something also, please.
Well, we need a second on that to get it.
I'll second that one in a
All right,
heartbeat.
we got a motion and a second then to suspend ordinance 1019.
I would like to speak before we do this,
Okay.
just
well,
like
we're in
everybody else had
we're
their
in-
chance to
We're in
speak.
discussion, go ahead.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. I understand totally the concern, but I don't want to find ourselves right back in the very same situation that we're in right now. We have 200 signatures, and I'd be willing to share this with you, Sam, and all except for one of the businesses that have signed this, and all of the businesses on Mick and Mom's block signed this thing. Just a second.
No, one at a
Let me
time.
finish.
One at a time.
So we have 200 people that signed this, and now we're getting ready to now make another decision without all of them being here.
No.
What I would like to see is, I agree, I would like us to come back to the table with this and look at it. But I don't want those people to be in the very same position that Mick and Moms has felt that they are in. I feel like we need to make at least an effort to let those people know that we are reconsidering taking this off of the table until we can all meet, so that everybody's vested in doing that. And my belief is that they will be. But again, I want everybody to know about it. I don't want to be doing it with just part of the people here when 2 weeks ago we had 200 signatures brought to us from people downtown saying, we want this ordinance. So, I hope we can go back to the table, and I hope we can look at it, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that that's what we are looking at doing.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say about it.
Mayor?
Mark?
Mr. Mayor, we also have a petition of 150 or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to get into 150 and 200 here. We have a petition from other people as well, other citizens. There was citizen-driven petitions, so obviously it's a divisive issue in the community. I think that, Priscilla, you and I are the strongest members on this dais in terms of supporting downtown development and making downtown a nicer place to be, though I think that's a goal of all of us. But I think that we need to take the time out and say, and I'm agreeing with Keith, that we acted hastily. I voted in error, and I wanted to correct that and give the citizens a voice to tell us what they want.
All of them. So we need to let them know
The
that
citizens.
that's what we're doing.
The citizens.
Okay, the motion.
Right. Yeah.
You want to, need to say something again, Sam?
It's kind of quiet in here, my voice carries.
Get up there, though, if you need to, please.
Mayor, we have a
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion.
motion and a second.
All right, I guess we can't do that. I like these open forums, but that's not proper, I guess, Sam, sorry. We've got a motion and a second to suspend ordinance 1019. What else is on that? Basically, that's
And
it.
direct staff to...
Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Yes.
One more point of discussion. Chief, at this point, how much enforcement have you done on any of this on the ordinance?
We have not.
Right, so it's
very,
not gonna be a- it's
very
not gonna be-
difficult to enforce it the way it's written now.
Same thing we talked about before. So again, we're not doing anything new. We're just making it official. Do not enforce ordinance 1019.
Okay, so that's the motion to
And
To direct
suspend
staff.
the enforcement.
And have the staff refer to the rest of the community to make sure that we're all in agreement with what's in that ordinance and what we're going to address as a community.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, sir.
Alyssa, have you got that, the language of that pretty well?
More or less, yes.
Oh,
I've got it
more or
written
le-
down, and I'll listen back just
Okay,
to make
so
sure I get it exactly.
Suspend the ordinance, suspend enforcement?
It was suspend
And-
enforcement of the ordinance and direct staff to contact the community and business owners.
Okay, let's make.
Okay, so we are not suspending the ordinance.
No,
We are suspending the
enforcement.
enforcement of the ordinance.
We know
I
that, yeah.
know
We got
that.
that.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
That's what I was telling you earlier, that there hasn't been.
Up to this point, they could have enforced it. Right now, they won't be able to going forward. And we're going to address, we're going to get everybody together and we'll discuss it.
We have a citizens forum.
Anything else? Alyssa, poll the council on this one, please.
All right. Counselor Usselman?
Yes.
Counselor Mullen?
Yes.
Counselor Glidewell?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Cronquist?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, 5-0. All right. Good. Got that one. Anything else business from the council? Future agenda items, October 1st, Police Department presentation, School Resource Program. So you're going to have Dean, Officer Butler here and
Correct.
a dog and pony show.
Correct. He's
All
going to do a presentation on the standard response protocol.
All right. It's 5 minutes to 9. Let's go home. Good night.